Welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Creatives. Today, I have a really special Indigenous peoples themed episode with my new friend, Natalie Benally. Um, Natalie, what are we making today?
Yeah, so ja, is Natalie Benally and Shia. Now, Bonnie is so touching me by his chin and his edge as she that will buy a dashinelle. I could it's in it essentially. So, hello, my name is Natalie. I am born for the Gray Streak Ends People clan, born for the Red Running Into Water clan. My maternal grandparents' clan is the Zuni Pueblo people clan, and my paternal grandparents' clan is the Water Edge people clan. And that is how I identify as a Diné woman. So I am originally from Gallup, New Mexico. I was born and raised in the Navajo Nation and currently reside on occupied tablelands, Ogapoge, also known as Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so today we're going to be making a dish that I have eaten my whole entire life. In English, it's called Blue Corn Mush, but in Diné, my mother calls it adola. So it's kind of like a porridge kind of food. So yeah, so that will be a traditional food that my people have been making. We've been using corn for basically everything. So this will be just one way to make something with it. So.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Natalie was super kind and sent me actual blue corn and juniper ash for this recipe from New Mexico, from the reservation, if I'm...
Yeah, from my mother. Yeah. So my mom I don't live back home with my parents. So I called my mom up and she was very kind and generous and brought me some roasted blue corn meal and some juniper ash that she made herself. So yeah, so you're getting some good from the ground stuff there that I sent you. So
I'm super excited. Anyways, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Don't forget that Indigenous Peoples Day is important, and it's important to me to also just say that the university that I'm currently at was on lands taken from Indigenous peoples of the Americas, and that's really important for me to also mention. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm very excited to work with Natalie. She's an absolute joy. Why don't you get to start by just telling me a little bit about your artistic practice? I would love to know more about you.
yeah, so I'm an Indigenous dance artist, choreographer, filmmaker, community educator, youth advocate. So I do a lot. So I'll start from my dance background. So I have been dancing for as long as I can remember. But growing up on my reservation, there wasn't really a place where I could really pursue that passion. I kind of just taught myself by watching videos and movies. And so that's kind of how my journey with dance started. It was just something that I really enjoyed doing. And as I went to college, that was the very first time that I really was in, like, I jumped into theater, I jumped into dance, and I really just wanted to learn more about it. And I wanted to pursue that because I think my whole life as a young person, I just really was wanting representation of someone who was like me, who represented who I was. So I decided to make that as my pathway. And it wasn't really until like a couple of years ago, like 6 or 7 years ago, that I actually really found a platform that honored me as a dancer and as an artist with who I was culturally. So I started working with Dancing Earth Contemporary Dance Company, and which is basically dance, but I tie in a lot of cultural aspects and storytelling, a lot of who I am as a Diné person into the dances that I do, the choreography, and I've been doing that for like the last 7 years or so now. And tied in with that, a lot of what I do, not just with Dancing Earth, but with everything that I do, is I always do my best to make sure that whatever work I create or art I create is really doing what I can to make sure that the community is just as a part of that as what I do on stage, in front of a camera. So whatever I put out there has to better the community. So for example, whenever I do a solo of mine that speaks to my Dene heritage, it is about showing the community not just the representation of themselves, but also it is passing on a lot of knowledge that, you know, is important for younger generations to have and to learn. And so I'm always doing youth workshops. I'm always doing things wherever I go performance-wise to talk about, like, you know, not only just like my background, but also like how it's important for me to work with Native youth in the work that I do. And currently I'm co-founding a mixed media storytelling company, which I hope that not only lets me do the art that I do with dance, but also with film, with theater, thinking about doing some consulting work with it as well, to really just kind of tell the stories that I think fit, like use whatever medium fits the story best. And so I'm hoping to, yeah, make this company into being able to make more content, being able to do a lot of community impact work with it as well. Like I said, because community and community action and impact is super embedded in everything that I do. Because what I do is just not for me, it's for the people, it's for the young people, it's for the elders. So yeah.
So you talked a little bit about your work as a community organizer. I'm curious to see how your work as a dancer has tied into that work and within your community.
Yeah, so with dance, so I dance in a company called Dancing Earth, as I mentioned. It's an intertribal Indigenous company. And whenever we are doing any sort of production or tour, we always align that with what can we do whenever we are in an area, a city, and what can we do besides, because the one thing that we don't want to do, and I think this goes for a lot of what I've learned to kind of adapt into what I do artistically, is I never want to come into a place and just be like, here I am, I'm a dancer, watch me dance, and then I go away. You know? Which is, you know, great. You know, people are able to, like, you know, see your movement, see whatever story you're telling on stage. But for us and for what I have learned to do is whenever I am there in the community, for one, it's always about doing your cultural protocol. So meaning that whatever lands you are on, because in any given circumstance, we are on someone's land, first and foremost. And so we always go to an area and we don't just, like, you know, plop ourselves there and say, here we are, we're a dance company, or I'm, you know, doing this movie, whatever. And it's always about acknowledging the people who live there and the land that we were on. So it's either one, getting in contact with whoever are the elder leaders in that community are, what are specific things that we have to do as protocol for the people in that community, and really just have a means of respectfully doing our work and setting that relationship up in that sense first. And so before we even do any kind of work, whether that's dance or workshops or anything, it's always like, who are the leaders in this community? How do we engage with them? How do we start off this relationship building in a good and respectful way? And how do we acknowledge the land and the people that we are doing this work on and with? And so, and that varies from place to place. You know, some areas have more specific, like, this is what you need to do, and some are a little more like, you know, fluid, and so it's not just like a one shoe fits all kind of deal, which kind of tends to be how it's looked at sometimes, because all tribes and all people are different. And so yeah, so that's where the relationship building is important. So we start off by doing that cultural protocol, just making sure that, you know, we are okay to do the work on the land. And from there, we do, you know, obviously our rehearsals, but we also make an effort to connect with either local schools or local youth organizations, you know, where we can actually get involved with the youth in the area. Because a lot of, I think right now as well with the company where it's at, it's consisting of a lot of younger generations of dancers and of mixed intertribal young people. And so we always do our best to connect with the youth to be able for us to, one, get them moving is always one of them. We want them to move their bodies and to reconnect with their bodies. Two is to be able to be in community with them as well and get to know them. And three is how do we uplift them? How do we empower them through dance to really kind of be proud of who they are, you know? And I think that was something that was important for me as an artist, is that, you know, I've been doing theater and I have been doing dance, but I never felt like I was really, like, you know, able to show something that was like, here am I'm a dancer, I'm an artist, but I'm also a Native person, I'm a Dene person. And I was missing that because that was what was really important to me. And so being able to give that to young people and doing these outreach workshops as I'm on a tour, for example, is really, it's rewarding, but also it's awesome because the kids love it. And they are like, wow, like I, you know, never saw myself as a dancer. And most of the times the kids I work with don't go on to pursue dance professionally. They just love how it makes them feel. And so that's always important, is doing those community workshops with the youth. And we also do that for the community as well, for anyone of all ages. You know, it's never about, here's a show, come to our show, and then we go to the next place. It's, you know, how do we enrich our experience as artists, but also really make an impact on the community and wherever we're going, and with the people who live there. And so that's something that I've really come to find really important on anything that I do that's not with the dance company or just the things that I do on my own. You know, it's how do I better the community with all these artistic tools that I have, because that was something that some elders had mentioned to us, you know, like young people will listen through the art, and they will learn through the art. They will regain their skills through the arts. And so that's something that stuck with me. And so now that I work as an Indigenous programs coordinator for a nonprofit here in Santa Fe called Girls Inc. of Santa Fe. And what I do is I do the work in Native communities with Native girls, and I, you know, always incorporate my artistic expression in with that as well. And it's amazing because, like I said, the kids that I work with are just like, you know, I never really thought of myself as like, you know, an artist, but everything that I do in my culture is art, you know, like our songs, our traditional dances, our you know, our pottery, you know, it's a beautiful kind of reclaiming of that pride and that sort of acceptance of who they are, that I think yeah, is always the driving force of everything that I do. It's like, I don't ever do a project just to do a project. It's how can this project influence and better youth, elders, the whole community as a whole, and how to represent that in a way that's authentic and real. And, you know, so I hope that gives you a bit like, sometimes I can go on a ramble, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that it's so nice to hear from you about this, because it's something I've been thinking a lot about. And I think you touched on something that I've said a few times on this show, and it's the difference between community outreach versus like community engagement. And it seems like your goal really is about creating this partnership with people in the community so that you learn from them and they learn from you, and everybody walks away having grown as people, but also having learned something about themselves. And I think that is so beautiful and special, and I thank you for doing this work. it's not, you know, it's not easy work, but it's rewarding work. And I thank you again.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Thank you.
So my blue corn is really, you know, it's starting to get that porridge consistency. I'm curious, you know, I grew up in the Southwest. You know, I'm familiar with a few different indigenous foods and native foods, and I'm just curious, why blue corn mush?
That's a great question. So blue corn mush is for one, it's an ancestral traditional food for Diné people and for a lot of different tribes in the Southwest. Corn is just everywhere. I mean, you've lived here. I'm pretty sure you've seen it all over the place. My family grew corn for many years. And so we use it from everything from medicine to coarse food, and it's used in our ceremonies. And so blue corn especially is it just brings back a lot of wonderful memories of me growing up. So like I said, my family, we're farmers. So we grew corn, we grew squash. And so whenever we would harvest, you know, we would roast the corn, or we would, you know, grind it, roast it to make blue corn meal, and we would have blue corn mush. We would have all sorts of different types of dishes using it, and it really is very central to our diet here in the Southwest, and specifically in my culture as well. So I wanted to choose something that was, you know, I think a lot of times people think, you know, Navajo food, they think, oh, like Navajo tacos or fry bread, right? When in actuality, fry bread really isn't a traditional food. It was something that came out of the need to survive. You know, people were given, you know, certain supplies, and they had to use these supplies and get creative to create something that could feed them and get them through, you know, the not being able to grow their own food, or having no means to grow it because the soil is not great. And so, you know, out of that came fry bread. And of course that's become a staple of Native cuisine, I guess you could say, but it's not a traditional ancestral food in the ways that blue corn and what we're making is right now. And so I just have really lovely memories of eating this with like my mom, my dad, my grandma when she was alive. And yeah, so it's just, it's funny, my mom picks on me because I've like really tried my best to kind of decolonize my diet. So trying not to eat a lot of meat and things that were, a lot of foods that were introduced when, you know, colonization happened of this area. And so she was like, well, if you want something that is organic and that is of the earth, here you go. This is it. And I was like, very true, Mom. Thank you. So yeah. So in Diné, my mom calls it adola. So adola, and then or blue corn mush. So yeah. So that's why I wanted to choose something that was very truly like ancestral to like me and my family, and holds a lot of significance in that way for me. So, and I think mine looks about done. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn off my heat, and I'm gonna let it sit for a little bit. It'll thicken up as it sits more. And so I'm gonna go ahead and just put aside my whisk. Ooh, that was a nice arm workout. So yeah, so I'm gonna let mine sit for a little bit. And yeah, and you can grab some bowls and whatever you wanna. And you can eat it with salt or sugar if you wanna add a little bit of sugar. Personally, I like to eat it with honey because honey is just nature's sugar in general. So that's what I like to eat mine with. And the awesome thing also, Spencer, about blue corn, the blue corn meal that I made it it was important to me that I sent Spencer all the ingredients like homemade from home. So you can also add the blue corn meal to like, if you want to make blue corn pancakes or blue corn waffles, you can add like a dash of it into like your pancake mix. And that way it can make blue corn waffles or pancakes for you. Those are my favorite, honestly. Like I love blue corn pancakes and waffles. It's like my favorite thing to eat.
This tastes very familiar to me. It tastes very familiar to me. Like it tastes like home a little bit, even though I've never had this before.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's partly because I did grow up with, corn is very big in the Southwest, and there's a dish from Chile that we have called pasta de choclo, which is like a corn. It's like a corn. We call it like it's like a corn dish, but we say I always describe it like a corn pudding, and it's almost almost a little similar to that to me. Although corn porridge, because it's but yeah, absolutely, it's really really delicious though. It reminds me of my family. So thank you for sharing this with me.
Awesome. Yeah, you're welcome.
So what's keeping you happy right now? What's giving you joy?
It's giving me joy. It's funny because I think initially when when the pandemic happened, like starting like around March time, right? All the schools here in New Mexico started shutting down. Everything just stopped, which was so hard at the beginning for someone like me, for sure. And I'm, anyone who is, such a go-getter, I have to keep moving in order to keep going and feel like I'm doing something, right? That mentality of like, if I'm not grinding 100%, then I'm not achieving something, right? Which has been interesting because I feel like lately I've been really enjoying and finding happiness in kind of the slowness of it all, which is so strange because I'm not usually like that. I'm usually like, oh my God, like, what am I gonna do? Like, I can't like go to places. I can't like do all the things that I was doing, which is interesting because I am still doing all the things that I'm doing. Like I'm still creating, I'm still making, I'm still dancing, I'm still doing the things that I was doing. It's just been an interesting shift because I'm finding a lot of joy and fulfillment and really just taking my time, which is, I think, an interesting shift from when I first, in March, when I was like losing my mind of like, what am I supposed to do? I'm, not doing all the things that I'm doing, but really it's like, no, you are. You're just at a different tempo and a different pace now. And it's great. I mean, I enjoy the times that I'm not doing anything. And I think that's so, it's just opened my eyes to just how much of that I didn't allow myself before everything happened. And it's a matter now of like balancing that out now of like, when do I have the time to do the work and to do the art and to do all the things that I do, in with the times of the rest and the taking time for myself. So I've been enjoying just, sitting on my couch, drinking coffee, and that's great. That's been great. Most times I don't do that for myself. So I think it's made me do it more. So it's been great.
Yeah, taking care of yourself is really important, and I must say, like, you are an absolute joy to talk to. This has just been so much fun. You're a wonderful, nice person, and I hope that we get to spend more time together and in the future. And if I'm in Santa Fe, I'll make sure to come look you up.
Yeah, for sure. And I also want to say, which is how I say thank you in Navajo. I just want to say also thank you to you as well, because, a lot of times when people have approached me or have approached people that I've known who, wanted to know about like what we do culturally, how does that tie into what we do? I think most times it's a matter of the way you asked me to be a part of this and the way you've always asked before, like even assuming that I would either give you information about my culture or give you the recipe for like, this dish that my family makes. I think it's important to also point out how how I appreciate your willingness to just be like, hey, I'm going to ask you, and I'm not going to assume that you're going to say yes or no. I'm going to let you decide. And I think that is important when it comes to things that are culturally rooted, things that are involved with things culturally. I think it's not something that you get a lot, unfortunately. So I just want to say thank you for having that respect and ability to say, hey, I'm going to ask you. If you say no, then that's fine. We don't have to do that. So
that really means a lot. It is. I will say it's something that I've been thinking a lot about and working a lot at recently. And you know, I've done quite a bit of research for various different research projects as well. And you know, for me, people and collaboration is really at the heart of everything. And to have better collaborations, it is a lot of asking, and it's a lot of, you know, respecting that what you have to offer might not necessarily be for me. It's, you know, it's part of that process of working together. And so thank you for making those comments. So where can people find out more about you? Where can people learn about what you're doing?
Yeah, so obviously you can find me on social media at Instagram. NatBenDance is what you can find me under, both on Instagram, Twitter, and then also Facebook. You can find my page there, just Natalie Benally. And I also will be launching the mixed media company that storytelling company that I talked about, which is Senato. So you'll be able to have the link there as well to kind of check out all the other projects I'll be working on with that company. And yeah.
Like I said, this was an absolute joy. All those links, as she said, will be in the description below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, as well as comment, explore different Indigenous cuisine. I must say, like, this was really, other than the arm workout, this was really not a challenging dish to make. It just took a little patience, and we get something really, really beautiful out of it. So thank you for sharing this with me, and please have a good rest of your Saturday.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.